Listeners, as a bit of a product junkie myself, I am so excited to announce that we have partnered with Bluemercury, which is your one-stop destination for luxury skincare, makeup, hair care, fragrance, and more, all thoughtfully curated and backed by their expert service. And because you are listening today, Bluemercury is offering 15% off your first order when you use the special link in our show notes. It's their way of saying thanks for being a part of the Divorce and Beyond family. So just click the link in the show notes, shop your favorites, and enjoy the 15% discount that will be automatically applied to that first purchase. That's 15% off your first order at bluemercury.com. Check your show notes to claim it now. Listeners, over the past couple of weeks, you have probably seen these headlines about a tragic murder-suicide that involved a couple going through a divorce. And once again, the story is being framed as it was a contentious divorce. And if you can't see my air quotes, know that my fingers are moving. And I want to be very, very clear about something. Divorce did not cause what happened. Divorce does not cause murder. Domestic violence causes murder. That's why I thought it was so important to do this episode, because when we get that wrong, when we mislabel what happened here, we don't just misunderstand what happened. We, as a society, make it harder for people to recognize danger in their own lives. So today's episode is a difficult one, but it is also one of the most important ones I have ever done, I think, because this is not just about what happened in those headlines. This is about what is happening every single day, often quietly, often without anyone naming it for what it is. And more importantly, this is about what you need to know to protect yourself if any part of this feels familiar. Welcome to Divorce and Beyond, a podcast about navigating divorce and what comes next. I'm Susan Guthrie. I'm a divorce attorney and mediator, and for more than 3 decades, I've helped people navigate divorce with clarity, strategy, and compassion. Each episode offers practical insight into the legal, emotional, and life decisions that shape your future. So let's get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Divorce and Beyond. I'm Susan Guthrie, your host, and as always, my goal is to support you before, during, and beyond your divorce. And sometimes that means having conversations that are uncomfortable but necessary. In fact, this is one of the things that makes it so uncomfortable or difficult to be a divorce attorney. Is so much of what our job is to have these difficult conversations with clients. And this is one of those conversations. So before we get into it, I want you to know that I've created a resource to go along with this episode. So if you feel that you cannot listen to the episode, please know you can still go to the website and download the free resource. It's called Your Safety First, a Practical Exit and Protection Plan. Because that's what I'm talking about today. It's not just something to understand, it's something to think through as you plan for your exit in an abusive relationship. So if anything resonates with you in this episode, or if you don't feel able to listen to the episode, but you are curious about the information, go to divorceandbeyondpod.com. You can get the free resource on the latest episode page and take that information in. I want you to have something you can go back to, something structured and calm that helps you take the next step thoughtfully. You're going to find it all on the website. So let's start with the narrative that we keep hearing over and over in the news, on social media, in all different places when people talk about these issues. They talk about it as, well, it's a messy divorce, or it was a contentious custody battle, a domestic dispute. And that sounds like conflict. Conflict is mutual. Understand that. Conflict is mutual. It's something that goes on between two people. It makes it sound like two people who just couldn't get along. And that's not what this is. This is not about a bad divorce. Divorce is a difficult process. I'm not saying that there aren't difficult times in the divorce process for people, that there's not some level of conflict at times for those people. But that is not what causes murder and harm to people. That is about power. That's about control. And that is about escalation. And those are the hallmarks of domestic violence. Divorce, in those cases, is often simply the moment when the dynamic is exposed or challenged. And so when we label these situations incorrectly, as so many people are doing about this recent murder-suicide in Virginia, we don't just get the story wrong. We miss the warning signs, and that carries over to the next person who is in danger. So I want to talk about the patterns that happen because they show us what we need to know. So I want you to be listening and hearing what I'm saying here to see if it sounds familiar, because this is not rare. Domestic violence and abuse are not rare. I wish they were. They are not rare. They are not unpredictable. In fact, they're very predictable. Domestic violence and abuse, intimate partner abuse, intimate partner violence, they follow patterns that professionals have understood for decades. Those of us who are on either the periphery, maybe the divorce attorneys of the world, the therapists, those who work in domestic violence shelters, they know that there are patterns to this. And most violence against women is committed by someone they know, someone that is supposed to love them. And when we look at homicide, the most likely perpetrator is a current or former partner. So it's not someone snapping in the moment of a contentious divorce. This is escalation. And one of the most important things to understand is that escalation often follows a very specific moment. And that is the moment of separation. A moment of separation, that time when you leave or try to leave your abuser, is often the most dangerous time. Not because leaving is wrong. I definitely do not want to leave you with that belief. It is not that leaving is wrong, but because leaving changes the dynamic. And so when someone who has been exerting control feels that control slipping away because you are leaving them, their behavior can change. Sometimes, often, it can be very quick and very dramatic. And this is why you hear people say, everything changed when I said I was leaving. Everything escalated when the divorce started. That is not a coincidence at all. That is a known pattern. We know this is true. And understanding that allows you to move differently, to move more thoughtfully and, more importantly, more strategically as you leave. Now, be aware there are certain behaviors that move a situation into a different category entirely. I call them the high-risk indicators. Be aware of these, and I want to be very clear about them. The first one, and the most significant, is strangulation. If someone has ever put their hands around your neck, even once, that dramatically increases the risk of future lethal violence. Other indicators include threats to kill you, access to firearms or weapons, but most importantly, firearms, stalking or monitoring of your location, your behaviors, where you're going, who you're talking to, stalking or monitoring, extreme jealousy or extreme control. And certainly the statements like, if I can't have you, no one will. Know that these are not just red flags. Statistics and experience show us that these are high-risk indicators. So if these exist in your relationship that you are planning to leave, know that these put you at even higher risk. Another thing to understand is why this situation is so often misunderstood. Because when media outlets describe these situations as, again, air quotes, contentious divorces, it creates a very misleading picture, right? As I said before, it creates this concept that it was a mutual conflict. You think about the two of them having this knockdown, drag out divorce. And that minimizes the abuse. Because these situations are where one person is a victim and one person is an abuser. And it implies that the divorce caused the violence. And that's not just inaccurate, it can be dangerous because it makes people who are experiencing these dynamics question themselves. Right? It makes them think, maybe this is normal. Maybe this is just what conflict is. Maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe those are one-off cases like this one that's been in the news. Maybe that happened to someone else and it's not going to happen to me. And that is the moment when the clarity matters most. That is who I'm talking to. That is why I'm doing this uncomfortable episode. Because it is very important to me that you hear that if these things are going on in your relationship and you are planning on leaving the relationship, you are in danger. And if you have any of those high-risk indicators, then you are at even more risk of danger. Do not let the media downplay the situation that you are in. What do you do with this information? This is where I want to move from awareness. So I've been raising your awareness of what's happening and the danger you are potentially in as you move forward. And we're going to move to action now. Because leaving is not just a decision. People think of it as like, well, should I stay or should I go? I'm going to go. That's just a decision that you've made. Now you are kicking things into a process. You are kicking things into motion. And how you leave matters. It matters for your safety. It matters for your children's safety, for other loved ones' safety. It matters for your pet's safety. It matters in so many different ways. And this is exactly why I created that companion guide for the episode. Because in a moment like this, you shouldn't have to remember everything you're hearing on a podcast episode. I want you to have something you can go back to that walks you through it step by step, calmly and clearly. But let's talk about what it actually looks like, because I know for many of you, this will be the first time you've ever heard these things. One of the most important things to understand is that planning matters. It matters more than anything right now. You need to be organized and strategic about what you do, and the timing of what you do matters. Very importantly, do not feel that you need to announce your plan before you are ready. That can and most often will increase your risk because it starts in motion the loss of control for the abuser. Right? So you put yourself in danger often when you make this announcement. So instead, think about your next steps quietly and safely. Where will you go? How will you get there? Who can you trust to support you as you do this? You're going to want to do several things. You're going to want to secure your important documents and those of your children, your pets, any other family members who may be with you. You are going to want to secure important documents ahead of time. You will also want to think about your digital safety, changing passwords, making sure if you're writing any of this down somewhere, it's not in a place, even if it's in your phone or computer, where they can access it. You also want to think about who has access to your accounts and whether your location is being shared. Even if you can't turn off location sharing until you leave, when you leave, that should be one of the first things that you do. Eliminate the location sharing. You want to build a small circle of support. And I will say small is usually really important. The less people that know that this is going to happen, that you are going to be leaving, the better usually. So not everyone. Not everyone. Be selective. Just the right people. People who can act if you need them. People who can help you if you need that help as you walk through this process. You're also going to need legal and advocacy support to get through this the best way possible. And this is where having the right professional support can and will make a real difference. If you're considering a restraining order, which may be necessary, or even wondering if that's something you should explore, know that we have an episode in the archive with my friend attorney Uswa Khan that walks through exactly what the process looks like and what you need to know if a restraining order is appropriate in your case. So understand that option, because understanding your options can take the fear out of the unknown. And if you ever have felt like you're walking on eggshells, especially in a legal or court setting, my conversation with Anne Wintemute is also incredibly powerful for you. She's the founder of Amy Says, which is a technological an app that can help you understand these abuse dynamics and how to navigate them. That's another episode in the archive. I want you to have as many resources as possible. But another piece of this that's so important is your voice. It's being able to tell your story clearly and effectively, because as you leave, you're also going to need to be able to advocate for yourself and for your safety and the safety of those you love. I also highly recommend the episode with Beverly Price on empowered advocacy. It's a very powerful episode, because how you communicate your experiences to your attorneys as you're speaking to them when you're in court, to the police if you need to speak to them, whomever you are speaking to, you need to be able to advocate for your own safety and that of those that you love. And that will help you get the support and the protection you need. Now, I want to go back to the firearm issue, because if there is access to a firearm and you are leaving, you have to take that seriously. It significantly increases risk. And that's where having some professional guidance before you leave and as you're making your plan becomes critical, where your planning becomes even more important. Find a domestic violence advocate. Find a divorce coach who specializes in helping people who are experiencing domestic abuse or violence. Meet with an attorney who understands the risks. This is important. I really want to emphasize this. If there is access to a firearm, you must take it seriously. I've also mentioned that, your children. If you have children, they must be a part of your safety plan from the beginning. That will extend to your loved pets. Your companion animals are also in the line of fire. They are very often used as weapons against victims by the abuser. So this is not a time for informal arrangements. The structure of your plan will matter. Having plans around safety matters, and getting guidance early on and plotting your strategy so that it is fully developed can make a meaningful difference. I also want to pause here for a moment and say something that I have heard over and over again in my career. Many people come in after something awful has happened and say, I knew something wasn't right. If something feels off, I want you to trust your gut. Trust yourself. You know you do not need to prove it. You do not need to justify it. You need to take it seriously and protect yourself and your loved ones. I know this has been a lot of very heavy content. This is hard. Living in an abusive relationship is difficult. Leaving an abusive relationship can be more difficult because it's a time of danger. So before we close, let me leave you with a few key takeaways from this episode because it's been a lot. First off, divorce does not create violence. An abuser creates violence. What it does is reveal it and sometimes challenges it, right? So the moment of separation is not just emotional. It will be emotional, but it is also a point of risk in certain situations. And if you understand that, it will allow you to move differently, more thoughtfully, more strategically, so you can be safe or safer. And finally, if something in your situation feels off, even slightly, do not ignore that because you deserve to take that feeling seriously. You deserve support. You deserve to be safe. And I want you to make that your highest priority. This is not an easy topic, but it is an important one because the more clearly we understand what's really happening in these situations, the better equipped we all are to protect not only ourselves, but others. If this episode resonated with you in any way on your behalf, on behalf of someone you know or love, I strongly encourage you to download the safety guide that goes along with it. Again, it's called Your Safety First, a practical exit and protection plan. It's a calm, structured, step-by-step resource to help you think through your situation and your next steps. You can find it and all the other resources at divorceandbeyondpod.com. If you know someone who might need to hear this episode, please share it with them. Sometimes the right information at the right moment can make all the difference. Until next time, listeners, remember, you deserve to feel safe, supported, and informed as you move forward into your beyond. If today's episode helped you see something more clearly, take a moment to reflect on one insight you can carry forward, one decision you can approach differently, one next step that feels more grounded. Divorce is not a failure. It is about facing reality and choosing a healthier path forward for yourself and your family. You can find show notes, trusted divorce resources, and expert guidance at divorceandbeyondpod.com. If this episode was helpful, follow the podcast and share it with someone who may need support right now. I'm Susan Guthrie. Thank you for listening, and I'll be back next time with more clarity, insight, and support on Divorce and Beyond.